Welcome to Real Conversations with Patricia Schneider, the podcast that takes you on a journey around the world to meet some of the most inspiring and accomplished individuals. Discover their stories, uncover invaluable business lessons from their paths to success, and gain exclusive insights on how to apply their strategies to elevate your life and business.
Hello, and welcome to Real Conversations with Patricia. I'm your host, Patty Barnowski Schneider. Today I'm joined by Carolyn Sophia Skowron. So welcome, Carolyn. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. And second off, I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am a huge Pens fan. My gosh, I could speak. Love my hockey. I grew up with like the most loving, supportive, just amazing family. I have an older sister and, amazing mom, amazing dad. But every time I left my house, I always felt like I never fit in. I was never part of the cool kids or like the popular kids, like any of that. And so as I got older, it just kind of built and built and built. And I started internalizing everything. And when I was a sophomore in high school, after all the bullying and all that, we found out that I had nonverbal learning disability, which is basically you're highly verbal, but you do struggle with conceptual skills, internalization, just, certain things with organization, all of these things. And it was something that I finally knew the answer to. And that kind of gave me the answer that we really needed. But then I went to boarding school because I was not doing well and, thought college was going to be the best 4 years of my life. It wasn't. And then fast forward to senior year, and I basically got in a life-threatening car accident where I'm just thankful I'm alive. And that's kind of, And then that kind of led to everything else.
Wow. Okay, now how do we come out of that? All right. So now you wrote a book. It's called Unbreakable. So what inspired you to share your journey of overcoming bullying, depression, and I guess nonverbal learning disability, NVLD? And what does being unbreakable mean to you?
So to answer the first part of the question, what really inspired me was the fact that having the ability to have a second chance at life is not always something people get. And when I was in this car accident, I should have said it was hit and run. I grabbed my seatbelt seconds before the accident. They never found the person. And, after that whole just mayhem, I just kind of was like, well, what's interesting is my freshman year of college, I almost tried to take my life, but my best friend in the entire world called me at the right moment. And then my senior year of college, I get into this life-threatening car accident where I realize I want to live. The first time I did it, and now I do. And when I realized that, that's kind of when I really started to say, I'm so grateful. I'm so lucky to be here. It was like a switch was flipped the second this accident happened. It was like I was a whole different person because I truly believe that it was my second chance at living the life that I knew I was meant to live. I'm really Christian. And so for me, whenever I thought it was God giving me my second chance at life, and I realized that I wasn't going to use that lightly. I was going to make a difference of it because I just was so happy and thankful to be alive that I wanted other people to know that, okay, it's the beginning of COVID. People are struggling. A lot of people are doing the worst they're ever doing, and I'm doing the best. How can I help? So that's kind of what really kind of inspired the whole thing into, really doing it. And then what was the second part?
What inspired you to share your journey of overcoming bullying and depression, and what does Unbreakable mean to you?
So really what inspires me to talk about, depression and bullying is it is such a prevalent issue right now. I mean, it's worse than it ever has been, just the rates and of depression, anxiety, and of suicide. I mean, it's just astronomical. And for me, as someone who has lived through all of this and come out on the other side somehow, I wanted to show people that that was possible for them too, because I'm not a licensed clinician or anything by that, but I am someone who has lived with depression, anxiety, self-harm, and in a really bad place. And so I also was really bullied, in high school, the girls kind of talked bad about me. In middle school, it was Marvin the Martian, apparently I had frizzy hair, yellow teeth, and a giant nose. So they would call me that. The boys would call me that all the time. And I would just be I would always be like, what's wrong with me? And then when I got to high school and it was kind of the same situation, it was kind of like, okay, like these girls are talking bad about you. You're seeing stuff on social media. Like this is right when like all the social media was just coming out. So I was at the beginning of it, but that was definitely really hard. And, seeing that and seeing that the way it all made me feel, I didn't want anyone else to feel that pain that I went through, that gut-wrenching soul pain, like in your soul when you come home from school and you're just like, I want to die. No kid deserves to feel like that. No one deserves to feel like that. And that's kind of why I do what I do, because if I can even help one person or I can save one life, then that's enough for me. And Unbreakable, what it really means to me, it's not just the title of my book. It's a mantra. It is something that I always say, I'm unbreakable. That's kind of how it kind of came to be. But it's basically saying that no matter what you're going through in your life, good and bad and whatever is happening, and when people try to tear you down, you don't break. You don't let that determine your worth. You don't let negative energy determine like how you should live. And it's something that I learned that I really want other people to know is like, unbreakable is a mantra, because you can live with the mindset of I am unbreakable. That didn't work out. Okay, well, I'm still unbreakable. And that to me is really what it's all about at the end of the day, because giving people also just like that hope and that kind of vulnerability to be able to be like, okay, you know what? That didn't work out, but that's okay. Or I didn't get that job, but that's okay. Like, and understanding that like these little digs when people try to be mean or whatever, it's like, you don't let that break you, because it's basically like this, and they can't break that wall. And it's so true. And it's just something that I really hope that other people can understand, that they deserve to live an unbreakable life too. But yeah, more than anything, unbreakable really just means to me, keep going, be resilient. You always have to be positive and adaptable. And that's really what it means to me at the end of the day.
Oh, that's awesome. And it is true. People, and no matter where you are in life, they're going to try to just push every button you have. And you just, what's the word I'm thinking? But unbreakable is a good one. Pretty much throw it at me, but you're not going to knock me down. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
So now, those unfamiliar, can you explain what nonverbal learning disability, NVLD, is and how it's impacted your life and mental health journey?
Yes. So, with NVLD, I was really bad at math and science. I was not really good in school. I ended up going in remedial math before I found out I had NVLD. But once I found out I had NVLD, it kind of made sense to why I internalized situations more so than someone else, why I was always ruminating on something from the past when most people would be over it, why I just constantly would be in this state of like anxiety and depression. It was amplified because of this learning disability and this, just constant overthinking and just basically going down a rabbit hole sometimes. So, it definitely affected me in that way. It also affects me in spatial awareness. People who have NVLD do struggle with spatial awareness a little bit. And that's what my friends say, I need a whole block to park. So, that's something that I constantly have to work at, and that's something that I honestly live with every single day. And that's still a hard one for me, but it's something that I'm aware of. So I try to be, extra, take my time or, not rush through things, because when you know these things and when you're self-aware, which really kind of is where it comes down to, is being self-aware of the fact that you have the power to control your mind, and you have the power, no matter if you have a learning disability or not. And with NVLD, I think it's so important to just be self-aware of when you're starting to spiral, of when you're starting to internalize, because then you can say, nope, we're not doing that. And that's something you have to train your brain through like therapy and all of that. But that is definitely something that NVLD, kids struggle. And sometimes with nonverbal cues too, someone might have said something and you interpreted it the wrong way, or someone gave you a look and you're like, why didn't they like me? But it's really not anything personal. And that's another thing too that I used to really struggle with, is like, oh, like they gave me like the look, they don't like me, or like whatever. But it's like, not everything is personal. And I think that's the other thing too, you have to learn, not everything is personal. It really isn't.
See, that's a tricky thing because I never heard of NVLD. And, like I know, like my one grandson's nonverbal autistic. And to the surface, you seem totally fine. So when you don't look different, nobody understands what you're going through. Because I see the same with him, where if he's acting up, you'll see people look at my daughter like, get your kid under wraps, it's not that she's a bad parent. You don't know what he's dealing with. And the same with you. If you were having these issues, you would never know it to the naked eye unless they know you personally. So it's kind of even more pressure on you how to navigate through this, because everybody's going to look at you like you're a bad person. You have no idea what's going on in my head, Wow. Yeah, so I'm learning all this too, because I never heard of this before, but definitely sounds a unique situation that you really have to learn how to navigate through. And you've had this your whole life?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I live with. It's also something too that, I'm not too familiar with it, so I don't want to misquote it, but it's not in the DSM-5, which is basically the list of all the disabilities, and NVLD is not in that. So I do believe that should eventually get in there because, kids who just find out they had NVLD, it's hard. You really don't know how to react. I was 16, I was already going through depression, I was already anxious. And then when I found out I had something that made me more different, that's kind of when it really spiraled. And that's where I really want people to say is, I'm different, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, because being different means you're unique. And
absolutely,
it's better to be unique than to try to be like everyone else.
Everybody else, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Now, you advocate for creating safe spaces for young people in school. So what practical steps can schools take to better support students' mental health?
Well, honestly, I have definitely some thoughts of what I think. I'm not anyone who can like make those decisions, but I really do think that, I was thinking about it the other day, and I actually was like, what if like my book was a part of the curriculum? Because what I was thinking is like they give you a health class, they give you, those main classes, but they don't give you an empathy class, and they don't give you a class that's going to teach you these skills on literally that you can use for the rest of your life. But I think that if there was a certain class, or even in health classes, talk about empathy, talk about how horrible the bullying is, and talk about how this book came from someone who literally would go to the bathroom crying at lunch in high school. So to show people too that started from the ground, now we're here. And I think that that's so important for people to know. So I do think, it would be amazing. I would love it. I would, be honored if anyone wanted to talk about it to change that. But I do think that a class is definitely more needed for these kids for sure. Another thing I would say is that I think that just protecting these kids, there needs to be more protection for them. I've seen so many stories recently where these kids who were like 13, 14, committed. And it's heartbreaking and it's heart-wrenching. And it's like most of that was happening on school. Some of it was cyberbullying. But, it's like, how do you change that though? Because kids are on their phones and all this stuff, but how do you change the bullying, or at least make the bully like have consequences? Because I don't think kids have consequences. And I think that's really where you learn lessons, is when you have those consequences, because otherwise you're never going to learn, and you're just going to keep treating people like that. And honestly, like, why? Like, why do people really need to be mean? Like, what is so amazing about being rude to people? Like, it does not make sense to me.
No, it's funny because I always say, like, the schools, they teach you from old, outdated textbooks, but they don't teach real world. Like, I'm a big advocate for experience speaks 10 times more volume than what you're learning in school. And, even with something like this, I would make it a point to reach out to the schools, even if they didn't have it in a class, have you come in and just talk to the students, because, it's not something they teach, like you said, and it's a big issue. And, even just going to talk to any school, you have no clue how many kids are suffering from this right now, just being bullied. And the schools always just say, not my problem. It is your problem. You spend more hours in a day there. By the time you go home and parents come home from work and you eat dinner and go to bed, you're in school more than anything. So that's your life. And,
Right.
They are basically your parents throughout the day, and they should be looking at this stuff. But unfortunately, like you said, they don't. And, now in the days with social media and whatnot, it's 10 times worse than it ever was when I was a kid. So I couldn't even imagine, but I commend you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I really love what I'm doing more than anything. And I hope people can see, like, this is what I want to do with my life. This is my purpose, speaking engagements and maybe writing another book in the future. Who knows? But just really doing anything I can to help people not feel that horrible pain that I was feeling. Because I always go back to that horrible pain I was feeling, because it's like, people know what that feeling is like when you're coming home in this gut-wrenching soul, like, hurt, especially kids. It's like, what do I do? How do I do this? And also understanding that being vulnerable is a strength. It is not a weakness. And opening up and sharing who you are in your story and what you're going through with at least a therapist, a friend, someone. But there has to be someone that they are talking to, because when you bottle it all up, like I did for years, well, then you become a ticking time bomb. And we all know how that almost ended. So I think that people need to understand, like, before it builds up, talk about it, see what they can do to make a change. Or, like, if there's bullying going on, making sure that there's, a plan. Because, it's like, here's the problem, but what is the plan and how are we going to make a change? Because we're all talking about how this is an issue, but now it's like, okay, what can we do to make a real change and make a real change in society and make a real change with having people actually be kind and not terrible? Like, there's always going to be bitter people, but that doesn't mean that the world needs to be so cruel.
Unfortunately, I always keep saying that in the world. It just seems to be the world we live in, that people just think nothing wrong with it. And it's like there's something seriously wrong with it. But everybody, as it's not happening to me. It could be happening to someone you love too, because most people like yourself, you don't talk about it. You kind of internalize it. And, that's not healthy either. But
yeah.
Now, you speak about transforming your building blocks from self-doubt to resilience and strength. So can you walk us through the key moments that help you shift your mindset?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, my speech is resilience. When something happens, when, I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's like, if someone tries to tear you down, or if you didn't get that job, or if you're still not where you want to be, that doesn't mean you can't keep going. Resilience is not about getting up. It's about getting up over and over and over and understanding that giving up is not an option. And that's something I really hope that people can understand, is like, no matter where you are in your life, you have the power to say, okay, how can I now take this and be like, oh, okay, let me go and actually make something of this. Let me go and learn something, or, maybe, but taking it into their own hands of how to be better. And, also with adaptability and positivity, like, adaptability is so important, and it's so hard to do sometimes because, we all think our life should go one way, but it goes another way. And that kind of happened with my LD. I didn't know that I had nonverbal learning disability for 16 years. Like, I'm going to be 28 on Monday. Like, it was years ago, but yet it's something that I have to live with for life. And so if people can feel less alone just by knowing they have the diagnosis and they have something just to say, oh, okay, that's fine, And I'm really grateful because I'm a part of the NVLD project, which is an amazing organization. I'm an ambassador for them. And basically just like educating people on what it is. And there's like blogs, we all do like 3 blogs a year. So I just did one. So if you want to check that out, it's on the nvld.org. But yeah, no, I just think that's, something that I really had to kind of learn, is like, it's okay for things not to be the way that you want them to be, because they could be better. And then, being positive too is the other big one, because it's like, it's not about going around and being like, everything is amazing, I love my life, let's go running through the fields. It's about taking those small moments, small wins, and being like, oh, I'm proud of myself. Or, yeah, you know what? It's gonna be okay. Just like telling yourself things, because yes, you can focus on the negative moments, but you also need to focus on the ones that are positive and put more energy into that, because those moments, life is precious. Time is very precious. And it's so important that people know that, because we just live in this world where it's all about status and society and how many followers you have and all this stuff. And it's like, at the end of the day, why don't you just be positive about the fact that you're alive? And, even be positive of like getting one like or whatever, because it's like everyone is so craving. Everyone is like trying to get this sort of, dopamine or whatever. I don't even know. Not a science person.
Yeah.
So I don't know that one. But it's just, it really comes down to the fact that people just need to understand that being positive also goes with being kind. And when you're positive and kind, you would just change everything. Your aura changes. One time I was walking down the street and this guy literally comes up to me and said, "I love your aura." And I had no idea what that meant. And I was like, interesting. I was like, thank you. Like, and, I was like, okay. So it really just is about, the energy you're putting forth and, the people you're surrounding yourself with. And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like I always, we call them negative Nancy's, the people who are just always so negative. And it's like, I don't even want to be around them sometimes because, I've written books too, like of all the crap that I've gone through, because people judge a book by its cover and think I had the world handed. You have no idea what I've gone through. And, you always find a reason to be happy. Yeah, I could sit here and be like, oh, my life sucks. And, but I like today's a rainy day, but it's going to bring the sunshine out. It's going to make the flowers bloom. Like you can find reasons to be happy and, to be positive. And I think, it's the energy, like you say, it's going to bring more happiness and bring more, good times in your life. But too many people, it's just easy to just be negative. And it's like, well, then be that by yourself because I just don't want it around me.
I was in that mindset for so many years. And I just remember just always feeling like I had this dark cloud over my head every day. And it was horrible, and when you get so comfortable being depressed and being sad, it's like, how do I fix it? But really what starts with the whole thing of finding positivity is to be positive in the fact that therapy, DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, like just try things, because be open to that and understand that gratitude is a really great thing. And I try to always practice that because, there is so much to be grateful for. And, number one is health. And that is something I learned because of an experience I had with, one of my friends and, them getting diagnosed with, cancer and, surviving it because she's amazing and an incredible person and one of my best friends. But it's like, you don't see those things every day. But then when you do, you're like, wow, I am very lucky to have my health. And I'm very lucky to have, a roof over my head or, to have water. And, it's like these little things we take for granted. But at the end of the day, if you actually take a step back, it will change like your whole mindset because that's really what happened for me.
Yeah. I always think too that things happen for a reason. And at the time they are bad, I always think there's a positive reason. Like just quick story of, mine. Like I was in crazy abusive relationships at one point. I had an ex who put a gun in my mouth and all this horrible stuff. But while it was horrible at the time, I got to say, it taught me how to appreciate what I have now. Like I'm with my husband and, he's phenomenal. And, stupid little quirks. If I hadn't gone through all the bad, I might have been like, I don't have time for this. But now I'm like, if that's the worst you're doing, that's nothing, so it's kind of like you go through bad stuff. It's like maybe your bad stuff is kind of brought you out of the shell to help other people. We never know. Life doesn't come with manuals. We don't know why things happen, but I like to think that there's a positive outcome for it. We just have to ride the waves to it, I guess, so
yes.
If we sit here and just say, oh, this is horrible, woe is me, you're not going to get anything out of it. And I don't think that was the purpose of why any of us went through what we went through or go through,
No. And it's like you said, you don't see it at the time, but if you look back and you realize like, and sometimes I think too, I'm like, if I was never in that car accident, would I be an author? Would I be a speaker? Like, would life have gone so different? And it's like, you can always what if, the past is the past. But it's like, that I'm not grateful for it, but I am grateful for what it taught me of my just being and being present and understanding that like your life can literally go from this to this like that. And being really, really, really grateful and having my parents and, having both my parents and my sister and, her husband, like, that was something, I had to really kind of be like, wow, like this is something that I'm so grateful. Like I'm home. I was in this horrible car wreck. I almost died. But guess who took you home? Your mom.
Right.
And like I'm just grateful that I still am able to be with my mom and my dad and my sister, because it's like at the end of the day, all that matters in life is how you treat people in your relationships.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
stuff is just stuff, in internal, external validation, okay, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you have people who love you and support you and want the best for you, you can get through anything. And it's like you still can have friends. I'm not saying with positivity, it's not like you can't like have bad days. It's like I still have my bad days too, of course, like we're all human. But it's like, or if a friend's having a bad day, it's not that they're negative. It's like, okay, they're going through something, let me be there. But it's just about checking in and being like, you know what? Like I need to just understand that right now
Right.
I need to do this for myself or my friend or whatever.
Right.
But it's just understanding that it's okay to have those days too,
Right.
and come out on the other side.
Right.
It's just about how do you cope with it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And having people, like you say, just be there for people, that's
Mhm.
huge.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned mindfulness as a pivotal part of your healing journey. So, what practices have made the most significant impact, and how can listeners incorporate them into their lives?
So the biggest one, which kind of goes back to breathing, but it's something that I have done now for years and it's a part of just everything. So basically, I call it, well, my therapist calls it the deep three. So basically, if you're in a panic, you stop and you take 30 deep breaths. So you go 1, 2, 3. And while it might seem silly, the more you do that, the more you are actually like training your brain. This is how we like handle these situations. This is how we calm ourselves down. And it's really all about retraining your brain to have positive coping and positive mindset. And that takes time. It's not like it's an overnight thing, like it wasn't something that just happened for me in like a week. It's something that continuously you're growing and you're trying to be better every day, but just trying to help people too while I'm doing that.
No, I mean, it definitely makes sense. You kind of take it a step back, like a pause for a minute and say, refocus your attention on something different.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Now, what message would you like to share with young people currently struggling with bullying, self-doubt, or mental health challenges?
Yeah, so, first for bullying, I would say, don't be afraid to tell an adult. I know everyone's like, oh, you're tattling, or like, oh, you're telling the principal. Seriously, don't be afraid, because I promise if they intervene, you could save that from person who thinks that the world, that you could really save that from someone who thought the world would be better off without them. And I think, making sure that you're talking to someone is so important. And when you're younger, talk to your parents, talk to, guidance counselor, whatever, high school, it would probably be more, I don't know. But anyways, I think that, with bullying, to train your brain. And what I mean by that is like, so if someone's going to say something mean to you, just be like, oh yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I really do look bad in these. So thank you. Thanks for telling me.
Right.
Because bullies want a reaction. And if you don't react or you say something, that is just going to make their jaw hit the floor. And that is just so powerful too. Or just don't say anything, walk away, and don't get yourself involved in any type of situation that is going to be around that person. So really kind of understanding your environment too, and what you can change and what you can do for yourself is important. Because when I was bullied, I really didn't have a teacher take it seriously, and unfortunately that wasn't good and it didn't really end well. But I did understand that having the support system too at home, or a friend or whoever it is, find a support system too if you're struggling with bullying, because it's something that having people around you going through it, because and when you're in it you think you're never going to get through it, but if you keep going and keep being resilient and keep getting yourself back up, you're going to get through the bullying. So I really think that those are the things I would say for bullying, as well as the fact as it's not going to be forever. I know you might feel like this pain and this hurt and these words and all this stuff, because words can hurt, yeah. But at the end of the day, this is not going to be your life forever. And it's just so important to try to see the bigger picture rather than just saying, oh my gosh, it's always going to be terrible. No, it's not, because you're not always going to be in high school. You're not always going to be in middle school. You know, it's like, it's a rough time. So confide in those people that will help you at those times. So that's what I'd say for bullying. I know that list is kind of long, but for mental health and depression, I always say, if you're listening to a podcast I'm on and you're like, wow, like I really am struggling. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. Like I feel really stressed. I, don't feel like I have anyone, or like whatever it is that makes you be like, wow, like I really do relate to this. Do not wait for help. I want you to even pause it right now. And if you're in crisis, call 988, text 988, make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your well-being, and making sure that you have the right tools to help you get through stuff, to help you get to the other side. Because that's the thing too, though, is, I had to get to rock bottom to get the tools to actually survive. And that should not be the case. So that's why I always say, you really got to, make sure that if you need help, you get help. And two, buy into the help. It is nothing if you go to therapy and you sit there and you lie to them. I did. So I know. So like, that's not going to do anything except for literally just ruining your like confidence, and like, because you're going to leave and feel like crap. Like that's how I left too. It's like, well, I wasn't really honest, but I was saying I was great, like whatever. But really kind of understanding that it's okay to say, you know what, this freaking sucks, but I'm going to buy in. I'm going to listen to what they have to say. I'm going to do these stupid worksheets, even if I think they're dumb, because maybe if I do it over time, it'll help me. Maybe it will help channel my, mindfulness and gratefulness and all of that. And, it can change your life fully. But more than anything, I think it's just important to know you're not alone. Whatever it is you're struggling with, there's so many people that are struggling too. So never feel like there's no one who understands, because, that's honestly why I wrote Unbreakable, because I didn't want people to feel alone, and I didn't want people to feel like they had no one. I had my angel of a best friend save me at the right moment, and not everyone has that. And so I basically, I want my book to be that angel for someone else, because I want to pay it forward and help someone else not get to rock bottom.
And nowadays with social media, I mean, it's easier to reach out to people. There's like, groups and whatnot across the world. So whatever time zone you're on, there's got to be somebody who's out there that can listen to you and help you and be there for you. It's just people, they're always afraid to make that first step, because no one ever wants to seem like a failure in anything. So you feel like a failure if you feel like I can't do this on my own. Like you said, you're not alone. And it's always ironic when, like I said, even with my book, if you even read it, you would never believe half the stuff that I've gone through. I don't brag about it. It's personal, but I did my book for the same reason. I wanted people to know that whatever you're going through, you're not alone. Other people have gone through that. And, most people don't broadcast that. So people need to know you're not alone. Even the greatest people in the whole wide world, I am sure, have gone through something at some point in their time, and everybody's willing to help. It's just, I can't read mine. So if I see you and you seem totally bubbly and happy, because they see that too, like with people who are depressed, when, when they, commit suicide, everybody always says, oh my God, they always seem so happy. No one ever expected that, because people don't portray that side. So, if I can't read your mind and know that you're suffering, I'm not going to offer to help you, because why would I think I needed to? So don't be afraid to ask for the help. It's help is out there for the taking. People just know that there are people out there willing to help, so I'm glad that you're
well, and the stigma too. It's like, understanding that, take off the stigma. Let's just all normalize, like, let's put out like cards, if people need help, and like, be like, hey, like, make it a normal conversation. Like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And like really having more surface, not having less surface level, relationships, and understanding that like, if you're vulnerable, you can actually make more of a connection with someone. And, with friends, with family, whatever it is, you are putting yourself out in that position where you're like, okay, this is like really what's going on, and this is how I feel. but you feel so much better when you just don't keep everything to yourself. So
100%.
the stigma there should be no stigma because it is not a shame to get help or do any of that.
I mean,
None.
and you could attest to it yourself, how much better you feel when you finally get everything out there. And it's like this tremendous weight lifted off your shoulder. I mean, people just need to know that there's a light at the other end of that tunnel. You just have to make the trip.
Yeah, exactly. And those bad days are bad days. It's not a bad life, you know?
Yeah. Now, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but awareness about NVLD it's still relatively low. So what do you think are the most significant misconceptions, and how can society better understand and support those with NVLD?
I think the biggest one is that sometimes people think that we aren't paying attention or like we're like in another world. Actually, we do pay really close attention to detail. So, if you're saying something and you think I'm not listening, I actually am. I'm just getting the detail out of it. I might not be as the big picture as much as like, let me get the small details from this. So I would say that's definitely one. I think another one that people think is that we're not verbal, but it's the opposite. We talk, we do whatever, and we still can live like a normal life and still go through the motions and stuff. But I guess not everyone with NVLD drives, and that's okay too. But for me, that is like therapy. I love driving, blasting music, which takes me to another point of people don't understand that they think that like with NVLD, like, oh, it's a learning disability. Actually, no, it's a superpower because that is what takes me to my creative side. That is what took me to writing Unbreakable. That is what takes me to writing songs. I mean, like I've only had one song out there, but it was just the whole thing of, oh, wait, I can write a song in 10 minutes. Okay. I can't do spreadsheets for my life, but I can write a song in 10 minutes. Okay, that's a strength. That's something I should be proud about.
Absolutely.
So really kind of just acknowledging that the creative side is the most like special side, and you get such special gifts and ideas from people with NVLD because we're always thinking and we're very creative.
I always love that. Like I think I did a blurb at one point about, like, wasn't it Einstein they said was autistic, and so many people with somebody else would say, oh, they're different or they have a disability, and they are the most creative and smartest people you would ever imagine. You just have to look beyond what you label them as. Everybody's unique, everybody's different, but what seems off to somebody else is a unique ability for somebody else. So I love like dissecting all of this and showcasing that, because I think the world needs to, kind of wake up a little bit. There's so much.
Neurodivergent is the new normal. Like honestly, like why would you want to be normal? It's kind of you have your quirks about you, and that's honestly a lot of neurodivergent people are like singers too. So it's like, and they do pretty well. So
Nice. So now what's next for you in your journey as a mental health advocate? How do you plan to continue making an impact?
Well, I definitely want to continue. As much as I don't love social media, I need to continue with that. And, TikToks and positivity and resilience and adaptability, and, doing more speaking engagements and, even maybe, I don't know, book signing. I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, I just want to continue to use my voice and want to continue to impact at least one person. And, if I can impact one person in each crowd, then that is what I wanted to do, because that one person life is going to completely change after they leave. And that's why public speaking is so powerful, because you can literally change someone's life. And that's why I love it so much, is because your words have power and people can see, oh, you're happy now? Okay, maybe I'll listen to this.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it is true. People, they could read, but talking and letting them see your emotion and see, you in action, that just brings it to a whole other level.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, anything else you want to talk about that we didn't already touch on?
I think we pretty much covered everything.
So how could people get a hold of you or buy your book or learn what you're doing or where you're promoting yourself and all that?
So my website is carolynsophia.com, And you can get my book there. You can also find out speaking there. There's like a form you can fill out if it's really easy. And so I try to do that on purpose. So it's like you fill it out, call me, we'll schedule it. So that is one. And then also I do have, I think, my social media handles linked to that, but my TikTok is Carolyn Skowron and my Instagram is Carolyn Sophia with 3 A's.
Good enough. I'll post them here anyway. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Again, that was Carolyn Sophia Skowron. So thanks for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia. Never miss an episode by subscribing to the channel, and be sure to click the bell notification to see new episodes. So thank you again.
Thank you for listening to Real Conversations with Patricia, talking with some of the most brilliant minds on their journey to success and their recommended strategies. Please leave your feedback and visit pristineadvisors.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Feel free to let me know your thoughts, suggestions, and anything else you'd like me to cover. Together, we can make success happen for all.